I'm Ann Reardon. Let's dive right into debunking with this clip sent in by Bobby Khan and h2ct.
Can you fry a gnocchi? Okay. Okay, this is going to be a blog post, not a...
You've got to love that laugh. Now, he was actually pretty lucky not to get injured by hot oil there. So let's run some tests and see if we can figure out why the gnocchi was popping everywhere. He used store-bought gnocchi, so I've bought several different brands. Let's start with this one. Put it into the hot oil, and there are lots of bubbles of steam escaping, which is what happens when you deep fry most foods. Now the gnocchi are clumping together and browning nicely. No explosions for that brand, just crispy gnocchi. Let's try another brand. These ones have a different shape to the first ones. I wonder if that'll affect it. No, once again, they seem to be browning nicely and they did not pop. Next up is this one, which has more of your traditional gnocchi shape. Each of these are taking about 3 minutes to crisp up and turn golden, and I have repeated it with different oil temperatures and still no popping for any of them so far. This one did end up with a much tougher outer layer than the others did. Let's test this last one. Put it in the oil and it's bubbling just like the others. Starting to go golden. That was loud. I was lulled into this false sense of security that none of them were going to explode, and then that one did. The oil has spilt onto the flame there, and so I really want to turn it off, but there were 5 gnocchi that I put in there and I've only heard 3 pops so far, so I don't really want to get too close just in case it splashes hot oil on me. I'm glad I waited. So this brand of gnocchi did pop, sending oil everywhere. The question is, why? Why were these 3 gnocchi fine and didn't explode, but this one does? If we take a look at the texture first, these first 3 are all firm, but they're still soft enough that I can squash them between my thumb and my finger, and I can do that for each of those ones. But the last one, the one that exploded, if I press that, it is really a lot firmer. It is a lot harder and a lot drier. So we could speculate from that because it's drier, when you put it in the oil, it's forming a harder outer shell and the steam can't escape, so that steam builds up and then boom, it explodes. But if we take another look at the slow-mo of them cooking, you can see at the beginning there is a steady stream of bubbles escaping, just like the other gnocchi brands when we cooked them. So the steam is not all trapped inside, and if we fast forward, it was still bubbling right before this explosion. And fast forward again to the next one. They're still bubbling too. Look at how much oil splashed out. It's just as well I had a safety shield up. The whole countertop is covered in oil and the whole back wall is dripping with oil all the way up to the ceiling. That is going to take me a long time to clean up. But back to the question of why. If we take a look at the ingredients in the one that exploded, you've got potato at the top, which is the main ingredient in most gnocchi, then wheat flour, rice flour, salt, and a bunch of additives. Now, if we compare that to the ingredients in the ones that did not explode, all of those ingredients can be found in one or more of the others, with the exception of rice flour. In Korea, they have a dish that's similar to gnocchi, but instead of being made using potatoes, it's made using rice flour. They take the rice flour, mix it with water, and heat that up to form a paste, which is then rolled and cut into these fat noodles or rice cakes, which are called tteok, and if you mix them with the sauce, you get tteokbokki, which is a delicious dish. And it turns out that these are cooked in a very similar way to gnocchi. You usually just boil them in water, but if you deep fry them, you get a similar effect to what we just saw. This is actually really dangerous because the oil for deep frying is much hotter than boiling water. So if that splashes onto you, you're going to get some nasty burns. So why does rice flour do this? Or to be more precise, why does cooked rice flour do this? Because if you take uncooked rice flour, mix it with water and deep fry it, it doesn't explode like this. It's only once it's been cooked, the starches form this interesting gel structure, which makes it quite chewy, but also quite stretchy, which allows it to expand a lot. Let me show you what I mean. Let's fry some wheat pasta. And now some rice noodles. Before frying, the wheat noodles diameter was 1.8 millimeters, and after frying, they are 2.2. Before frying, the rice noodles were 0.7 millimeters, and after frying, they're 1.8 millimeters. So the wheat noodles increased in diameter by 22%, but the rice noodles increased by 250%. And that's fine if you're frying rice noodles because they're really thin, they just puff up and go crispy. But if you've got something thick like the rice cakes or the gnocchi that had rice flour in it and there's quite a bit of moisture on the inside, that stretchy gel structure that the starch has formed can trap pockets of water. And as the pressure increases, water that's heated under pressure can get to above boiling point without actually boiling, and that's what's called superheated water. Then because the rice has this ability to keep expanding, then it expands and suddenly ruptures that outside layer, which then brings the pressure back to normal, and all that superheated water suddenly just boom, turns into steam and displaces all of that oil, sending it flying everywhere. Definitely do not try that at home. Next, if you're looking to update your business operations, take a look at Odoo. Today's sponsor, Odoo, is an all-in-one business management software that helps you manage your day-to-day work. It includes more than 45 apps that cover everything from marketing to HR, finance, sales and project management, and because they all operate on the same database, everything integrates seamlessly. Let's say you're running a clothing store. Odoo will take care of your e-commerce site, invoicing, shipping and payment linking, inventory and so much more. All their apps are included in the one price. But if you're looking for something specific, you can start with just one app from Odoo, and that will be free for all time for unlimited users. And then as you grow, you can move on to an affordable paid plan. To test it out for yourself, click on the link in the description and get your first app, free for all time, which is a great way to get a feel for how it all works. Next, Bianca and Rebecca sent in this clip.
I need somebody to explain to me why I can eat bread in Spain and in Greece, Italy, no problem. Why? I was gluten-free in 15 years. I've been gluten-free in Canada, America. Can't eat it. Here I'm eating like pizza and full-on buns every day. I have no problem. It's like, what are we doing to the wheat over there? And I don't get it, man.
Bread can have quite a lot of ingredients in it, so if you're having a reaction after eating bread, it can be a good idea to do some testing to find out exactly what it is you're reacting to. Because as much as gluten gets a bad rap, it's not necessarily an issue for you, and it would be a shame to eliminate an entire food group, which is what this guy did when he didn't really need to. Now, let me just preface this by saying if you're having allergic reaction symptoms, so your lips are swelling or blistering, or your tongue is swelling, or your throat is swelling, or you're having difficulty breathing, or you're getting hives, that sort of thing, don't test at home. Go to a hospital or a clinic that can test for you in a safe environment, and then if you did have a reaction, they've got everything there to assist you to make sure that you don't stop breathing. Allergic reactions can get worse each time, so don't just assume that you've had one level and you're going to stay at that level. This is for people who are not having an allergic reaction, they're more having an intolerance, so maybe some gut symptoms. The first thing you want to do if you're consistently having negative symptoms after having a food is to check the ingredients list on that food. All of these are potential candidates. Ingredients are listed from most to least, so let's start with the biggest one, wheat flour. Grab some flour and check that the ingredients say wheat flour and nothing else. Then put some into a bowl and add a little bit of water, give that a stir, and then give it a quick knead to bring it all together. Then roll it out fairly flat and put it in a sandwich maker or a pan to cook it. You don't want to add any oil or other fat to this because we're trying to test one ingredient only to see if that's what you're reacting to. If you can eat a whole heap of this with no reaction whatsoever, then you don't have an issue with wheat, and you therefore don't have an issue with gluten, which is the protein portion of wheat. If that's the case and you happen to live in France, then you could always eat baguettes from boulangeries because they, by decree, can only contain wheat flour, water and yeast. No additives, no preservatives. If you don't live in France, then you could make your own bread, but be careful what recipe you follow. There are plenty out there like this one.
After learning this, I will never buy bread again. Humans started making bread 15,000 years ago, so it should be a pretty simple recipe, right? Then why is it that bread today is loaded with preservatives, thickeners, and artificial flavors? This bread is only 3 ingredients, costs $2, and is so easy to make.
That sounds wonderful. But if we rewind back and look at the yeast that she's using, and then find that yeast online and look at the ingredients in the yeast, we can see that it contains yeast and sorbitan monostearate, which is an emulsifier, and most yeasts that you buy at the shops will have this in it. And the reason why is it extends the shelf life of the yeast, and it also helps it to rehydrate quicker, which means your dough is going to rise quicker than if the yeast didn't have that in it. So the ingredients list for the bread that she made should actually look like this. Now you could of course still make that bread recipe and use it to test whether you are sensitive to that emulsifier or not. And if you are, then you're going to have to hunt for the very hard to find yeast that doesn't have emulsifiers in it. Or you could go to a bakery and get a traditional sourdough loaf, but do check the ingredients because some of them are not so traditional and have a lot of additives and extra ingredients in them compared to others. But once you know what you're sensitive to, it's a lot easier just to avoid that than to avoid an entire food group that you weren't sensitive to. Next, a 60-year-old man earlier this year presented to an emergency department. He was having hallucinations, insomnia, extreme fatigue, skin issues, and extreme paranoia, to the point that they forcefully admitted him into the psychiatric ward. It turns out that 3 months earlier he'd decided to cut down the salt in his diet, and he had consulted ChatGPT as to what he could swap sodium chloride or table salt for, and came up with sodium bromide, so he started using that. The trouble is that bromide accumulates in your body. It has quite a long half-life, so it's very easy to build up toxicity, which is what happened, and he had bromism. Now, that explained all of his symptoms, and this was a lot more common if we go back 100 years ago, because bromide was in a lot of easy-to-get medications.
When you hurt, even a little bit, time counts. So why wait? Take a bromo when you don't have the time to feel bad.
So we've got 2 things to learn from that story. 1, don't take anything with bromide in it unless it's in a medication that a doctor has prescribed to you, and then only in the amount that they prescribed. And 2, don't trust ChatGPT. It's often wrong, and you need to check everything that it tells you. It even says that on the bottom of the website. Let's ask some questions. If I ask it to list 5 baker's yeasts that are available in Australia and have no emulsifiers, you can see it quickly generates a list for me. Scroll down and ask my favourite question: what was incorrect about that answer? And it lets us know that some brands listed are not commonly sold in Australia. I included generic Woolworths or Coles links that don't exist. So the answer might look good, but once you start actually checking it, sometimes it's just pretty useless. But that was quite a hard question. It is hard to find yeast that doesn't have emulsifiers in it in Australia, so let's give it something easier. What if I take a list of 20 stores and ask it which one is closest to Box Hill? Once again, it spits out the answer, and now I ask what was incorrect about that answer. I picked the wrong closest. There were 2 other stores that were much closer. Scarily, a recent report has found that 58% of 9 to 12-year-olds are talking with AI chatbots, and nearly half of them believe that they can trust all of the advice that it spits out and tells them. So if you have kids, make sure you spend the time to educate them about the limitations of AI chatbots so that they know to have caution with the information that's being spat out and not just trust it as a trusted friend or a trusted adult in their life, which is not what chat is for at all. Next, Christos wants to know if this works.
If you blend chicken, Parmesan, eggs, and bake it in a loaf pan for 30 minutes, you get carnivore bread that actually has an amazing texture.
This guy listed all his ingredients and the video looked legit, so I'm expecting that this should turn out just like it did in his video. And yes, indeed, it does work. So the real question is, what does this taste like?
Okay, carnivore bread, those things don't usually go together. I smell chicken. I taste chicken. Stodgy. It's not bread. It's like a chicken meatloaf, sliced chicken. Oh, strange texture. I'd rather just eat a roast chicken. Like it kind of tastes the same, but the texture is very unusual.
Next, Joe wants to know if this is possible. The answer to that, Joe, is yes, definitely. This one works. They are injecting a coloured milk-based jelly or jello that's not set yet into a clear jelly. I actually have a recipe for this exact thing in my cookbook, and I also have a video about how to do it. If you're a long-term How to Cook That subscriber, if you can find the video and put a link to that for Joe in the comments, that would be great. And for my super observant subscribers, you may have noticed some letters and numbers in the back of my videos. This is nearly the last one. There's a couple more to go, and they will lead you to a secret puzzle. And the first to solve that puzzle will get a $500 Amazon gift voucher. So have fun with that. And if you liked this video, make sure you share, comment, like, subscribe, all the things that tell the algorithm this is a good video, show it to more people. With thanks to my amazing and wonderful patrons, I really appreciate you. Make it a great week by being kind to others, and I'll see you on Friday.
Molly, what do you think of chicken bread? Oh.